guest, this conversation is going to be interesting. Number one, he says that, number one, it's going to be no face. We're not going to show his face. And number two, we have a voice changer active because his identity needs to be concealed because, and I'll let him talk about it more specifically, but he says that, there is a dark past there where, potentially over 100 people might have been injured at some point along the way. And so some of the stuff we're going to talk about necessitates that there need to be some anonymity involved. So we're not going to show his face because I don't feel like I can securely enough blur it today, and I don't want to risk it. And number two, I have a pretty harsh voice changer in effect to hopefully conceal who he is well enough that I feel good about it. So please bear with us. The audio might be a little annoying, but it's the price to pay for a conversation that we probably would not be otherwise able to share with you. Otherwise, this would have been a situation where it would have probably been a private one-on-one conversation just between he and I that none of you guys would have been able to benefit from. Thankfully, he agreed to risk, talking about this stuff with a voice changer. So there's that. Please bear with it if it's a little annoying. Nothing we can do. It's better this than nothing as far as I'm concerned. Again, please be respectful in the comments. It's not a request. It's pretty much a demand. This is going to be my house. We're going to be polite to people no matter what they have to say. And we're hopefully going to have a pretty interesting conversation about the existence of God. So without further ado, let me get him unmuted and don't say anything yet. Let me make sure my voice changer is active here. I believe it is. All right, give me a test, please.
Test.
Okay.
Test.
Yeah, that is active. Boy, that's active. All right. So welcome to the show. I believe we're going to be calling you by a pseudonym, which is Sue. So welcome to the show, Sue. It's good to see you, and hopefully I don't have a complete brain fart and say your name. I'm going to try with all of my might and brain power not to do that. Sue. We're talking to Sue today. Thank you, Sue. I appreciate you coming on, and I think you had a pretty unique argument, and I don't know the argument yet, and maybe you can kind of give us an introduction as to why it might be different than some of the other God arguments that we've had. But I'll just give you the floor, and we can talk through it and see where this goes.
Thank you for having me, Patrick. Quick question. Is it better if I pronunciate a little slower, or is it okay for me to talk up to speed?
The speed you're talking at right now is fine, if that's good. Yeah, talk normally, and if it's too much, okay. I'll tell you.
Perfect. So I've prepared a presentation of my story that is hopefully something that can be insightful into your paradigm of a spiritual world, along with anybody else that's viewing. Here's the presentation, or the format of the presentation that I've prepared. First, I plan to ask you a couple simple questions, followed by me managing expectations. Then asking you one or two more questions, then my story. After my story, I plan to ask you another thought-provoking question to bring it back into a philosophical type of discussion. Ending the conversation by sharing my beliefs on the afterlife. What's next? Okay. So to begin, a question. Let me define what I believe to be the definition of an unexplainable truth, okay? Pretend you know something that you believe with 100% of your mind and your heart and every cell in your body, but you cannot explain it. You can say the word truth, you can say what it is, but you can't explain why it is. You learn a second language, a third language, a fourth language. You become multilingual. You study Somalian hieroglyphics, Egyptian hieroglyphics. You tear down your body, your brain, down to the basics and rebuild yourself, and you still can't explain this truth, but you believe it with everything you have. The question is, would you be able to accept that?
I forgot a preface that I wanted to put out there first, actually. So there's something when I'm having a discussion or a debate about the existence of God that I don't bring up, which is my daughter's illness. because it is such a powerful, personal, visceral thing that even though there's some very, I think, good logic there in questioning the existence of God in a place where, you know, a little kid can get leukemia, for example, I don't bring that up because in a way it's so emotionally bound that for the person I'm talking to try and argue against me, they would basically have to, you know, make a case for my daughter having cancer and God existing. And that is such a disgusting position to put somebody in, or a disgusting position to have to argue from, that I don't use that on purpose, because it just, even though it might be valid by some, even though I think there's a valid argument to be made there, I don't feel like it's fighting fair. And so I don't use that when I'm having discussions. Now, I'm afraid, this is something I wanted to say up front. I'm afraid that whatever you're about to tell us about is going to be something very difficult or very personal, or I have no idea what it is. But if it falls in that category where to defend my position, I'm going to be put in the place of sort of, I don't know, calling out or attacking or doing something to this very terrible thing that you're about to tell me, that I'm not saying that I'm worried about it. I'm saying that I'm worried about it. It makes the conversation emotionally charged and difficult. And so whatever you're about to bring up, if you're going to choose to bring that up in a conversation with me, please be aware that I'm going to challenge it if I can. And if I have a good argument, I'm going to challenge it, even if it's emotionally charged. And if that's not your thing, please respectfully bow out now, because it would be like me, if I'm going to talk about my daughter and the existence of God with somebody, I would want to sort of warn them in advance that I would be okay with them fighting against that. Does that make sense? I just wanted to kind of state this up front, because I have no idea what you're about to bring up, but these conversations are really intense and personal and emotionally charged. So there's that. And there's no shame in bowing out now if you'd like to.
Your preface makes 100% absolute sense in saying that, Patrick, if you were to tell me that it was a good idea to eat a turd, I would walk around that turd in all 360 degrees and look at it in every single angle, and I would think to myself, Patrick probably had a good reason for telling me it's a good idea to eat this turd, and I would really try to figure it out. I probably wouldn't eat the turd because I think for myself. Good. But I would give you the benefit of the doubt, you know. So there's I have an unconditional positive regard for anything that you have to say for me, and that's within the scope of religion, politics, or family, or anything else that we could possibly discuss. So thanks for sharing that with me, and I hope that we can have a free conversation.
So your question.
Okay. So
your question to me was basically, what would I do if I had a personal experience that I couldn't explain? What was your question? I want to make sure I get it right.
We can zoom out a little bit and disregard the thought of religion for a moment, but you can consider religion with this question. If there was an unexplainable truth that you believed with all of your body, heart, soul, spirit, mind, whatever, would you be able to embrace it as a truth, even though you can't logically justify it? Would you accept it?
So if there were a thing, and let me use this as an example, and you can tell me if this is not apt. So like if we were 1,000 years ago and there was no explanation for gravity, and, you know, I obviously knew with my senses and my body and all of my experiences that there's this force that pulled things to the earth. Would I accept that even if I didn't understand how it worked? Yes, I think it would be irrational to not go with this, with that. Now, I wouldn't say that I knew how it worked. I could just say, look, there's these things that happen, and something causes this to happen in a consistent manner, I guess. And there would be data for that. And so that's what I would say existed. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that is right on lines with the underlying meaning of me asking you that question. Okay? So now think of the person, and it's okay if you need to take a moment. Think of the person or think of a person in your life that if they told you it was a good idea to eat a turd, you would look at it from all 360 degrees around it and try to figure out why they told you that, because you knew they must have had a good reason. Tell me when you have someone in your mind.
Yeah, I have someone.
Okay. Now, if that person gave you an unexplainable truth, they couldn't explain it, but they told you that they believe it with every single ounce in their body, and that truth contradicts what you believe, would you be able to accept their ideology and believe that as well for yourself?
So if it was something like gravity, they would be able to, show evidence for that, data, like I was talking about. If there is no data for something, then no. I might take the idea or the possibility of the thing existing more seriously, rather than maybe dismissing it as just another claim without evidence that there are so many of. But the standard of evidence is still there.
Okay, perfect. That's what I expected you to say, and that's a very reasonable thing to say. In fact, I would probably say the same thing. Okay, most people would. There's a reason that I asked these two questions, and here's the part where I manage expectations for my presentation today. Okay. My plan is to share my story, the things that I've seen and done, with the hopes that no one does what I've done. This is my unexplainable truth. I can tell you what the truth is. I can't explain why the things have happened that they have happened. Okay. I would hope that me sharing my unexplainable truth would at least be, we could say, like a filling of a bucket. And once that bucket is completely full, then you have changed your perspective. Okay. And if I have a drop in the bucket, then I would hope that you would ask 99 other people to get 100% drops in the bucket to change your perspective. Okay. Because I don't want you to do what I have done. I want to make that super clear to anybody that's watching, listening. This is not a good idea. This is very, very evil. Okay. It's very, very bad. So that is my managing of expectations. Now, to shift the discussion into a paradigm that most creationists don't use, if I could prove, I'm not saying I can, but if I could prove that evil exists, okay, an evil realm, a spiritual evil realm, you could call it devils, a devil, the demons, Lucifer, whatever. If I could prove that an evil spiritual world exists, does that also mean absolutely a pure spiritual world exists too?
Ask that again.
Think in the perspective of yin and yang. Okay, is yin and yang accurate? If I can prove there is a spiritual evil world, do I even have to put more effort towards proving there's a spiritually pure world?
Yes.
Or does that automatically prove that?
I don't see how it could automatically prove it.
The existence of a
you could have you could encounter, I don't know, let's say a light bulb that is in an off state. And the fact that it exists in an off state doesn't in any way prove that it ever was in an on state. Sounds like an appeal to yin yang.
That's physics.
Yeah.
It is. That's physics that you mentioned. How could an evil, spiritually evil world exist without a spiritually pure world?
I don't have evidence that either exists. So I can't make the connection from B to C until I have A to B at least, right? Okay. Then my conversation will be to prove that
an evil realm exists without proving that a pure world exists.
Okay.
Which is not my goal, but maybe the viewers can. Maybe there's some people that believe in yin yang, and that there's a spiritually evil world, then there would have to be a spiritually pure world. Okay.
Can you define?
And it's okay if you disagree. We'll just move forward.
Can you define spiritually evil world? I think those three terms need to be defined for me to even know what you're trying to prove exists.
Mm-hmm. So a spiritually evil world would be let's use the word realm instead of world. Okay. A spiritually evil realm would be we could say a dimension. It's one of those unexplainables. I can't explain like exactly, but a spiritually evil realm would be a dimension of evilness, evil spirits that have malevolent intentions. And the other side would be a spiritually pure world where they have benevolent intentions.
Okay.
It just seems logical to me that there would have to be purity as well, and vice versa.
Okay. Well, thanks for defining your terms. That seems more clear. Let's, I guess, get into it. I'm interested to have this conversation. So.
Okay. So my goal is to share my experiences, proving that I believe that there is an unexplainable truth of a spiritually evil world. Okay. Realm. Okay. So whenever I was when I was 12, between 7th and 8th grade, I saw this TV show. It was called THEM, THEM, THEM. It was an acronym. It stood for the words totally hidden, extreme magic. I saw things that were basically just camera tricks. I didn't know they were camera tricks then. I was young. It was a bunch of 1,000 bees flying out of a guy's mouth. And another guy had shoved his arm up a vending machine and pulled out a bag of chips, things that were just camera tricks, just on TV. But it inspired me. I thought, what if things like this are actually possible? When I was young, I was still learning the world, what's happening. So I went into Google between 7th and 8th grade for me. This was in 2013-ish, 2012. No, I'm sorry. Oh my goodness, I'm dating myself. 2002 and 2003. Okay. So I Googled spells or witchcraft. Can't remember exactly what I Googled, but I found thousands and thousands of results. And I started looking into these different spells. There's money spells, there's wish spells, there's sex spells, there's any type of desire that you could think of. There's a spell to attain that desire, simply put. Okay. What fascinated me the most was the money spells. So I would do a couple different spells, and I would receive money, which is really, really weird as a child, especially because when you're an adult and you randomly receive money, that random means of income could be something like a bonus at your job or a promotion at your job, or in the sense of an evil or a malevolent spirit, it could mean an inheritance from your grandfather dying. Okay, but as a child, it's totally different, right? A bonus, or a promotion. So I would have just like the most random family members that's never given me money in my entire life give me money, and it was really weird, and it worked 100% of the time.
Okay.
So I learned through experience that witchcraft or sorcery spells has what is called a 3x3 fold. And I'll give you just a couple hypothetical examples. You do a money spell, you receive $10 from whoever, wherever you find it walking on the street, and the next day you're in debt $30. Just an example of what a fold 3x3 could look like. Okay. So whenever I would get these money spells, I also smoked weed at the time. Okay. I had bought some weed. I went to school. Now I'm in the 8th grade, and I had gotten arrested for this weed at school. I was sent to alternative school. I did another money spell. I got $30. At this alternative school, they had a rule. You can only carry a maximum of $10 to school per day. I don't know why I was respecting that rule, because I had intentions of buying pot, which was illegal. So I brought $10 to school. I bought pot. I found out later it was oregano. Got screwed over. The next day I brought another $10 and bought another, this time it was in a little blue box, but it was weed. And I found out after opening it and trying to the transaction, I found out that it was actually just leaves, like off a tree. Go to your yard and get some leaves. Okay. So bad luck. You could chop it up too. The third day, I go back to buy weed again with the last $10 for my money spell. And this time it was weed. It was real weed. On the school ride home, on the bus ride back home, these two older kids had jumped me, beat me up, and took my weed. So out of 3 attempts, I got no weed. I got beaten up and made a fool of. Right? So it's folding over 3 times 3. It may be important to mention to the evidence part of it that whenever I did return to 8th grade before alternative school, I had recruited about 4 or 5 different of my classmates to also engage in witchcraft with me, of which 100% of their spells worked 100% of the time, without a doubt, every single time. So you heard my story about the money spells. I'm going to go into another spell that I would do.
Well, I think I would like to know how you concluded that, I don't know what the spell involves. I know almost nothing about this stuff, but I'm assuming, there was some chanting involved or some symbology or, there was some pomp and circumstance around casting a spell. I don't even know what that means. But how do you go from that cause to the effect of, there was some money? Because humans are pattern matching geniuses. Like we can put disparate activities and events together. We can see patterns where there really isn't any. Like we're so good at pattern matching and categorizing things that we constantly have to self-check ourselves to look for null hypotheses to make sure that we're not believing something just because we see a pattern there. So how do you go from doing some physical actions in the world which clearly have no innate power to make money appear to I guess thinking that there was a correlation, or not a correlation but a causation there? Because there's correlation doesn't mean there's causation. So I guess my question is, how did you derive causation from that correlation?
Yes, it's a 2-part answer. I saw you pulled something up on the screen that you had Googled. Can you Google something else for me?
Yeah, sure. I just have never looked up spells before, so I figured I would try and learn something while we were talking. Yeah, I can Google something. What's up?
Yes. Okay, type in the word accidental.
All right.
Reinforcement.
Don't get me on any lists now, all right? All right.
And if you could just read off the definition of accidental reinforcement. Or you put it on the screen. Or
accidental reinforcement is a coincidental and unintended pairing of a stimulus and a response. This can happen in a lab when a test animal associates a particular handler with something positive, being paid attention to or petted, and responds to their appearance, as in classical conditioning, or when the animal happened to be on an exercise wheel when food was provided, leading to more time spent on the wheel in hopes of being fed again, as in operant conditioning. Is that the definition you were looking for?
Yes. To answer your question, as a child and still today, I've always been a very analytical person. At that age, I did not know the term accidental reinforcement. This is something I learned later in life, and this is something that a lot of discreditors, I guess we could say, use to discredit superstitions like the 13th or 7's a lucky number. because someone was accidentally reinforced and they developed a pattern, and this is what it reinforces that pattern. I didn't know that term, but even then I knew that there was a chance, like a slot machine, that maybe this is just something that could happen every now and then. But it wasn't every now and then. It was 100% of the time, no exaggeration. Every time that I did a money spell or one of the other couple spells that's going to be brought up, it worked. Okay, so now the stage between doing a spell and receiving the money, okay, how does that work? So do the spell, hocus pocus, blah, 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 and then within the next 2, or usually within the next day, but certainly within the next 3 days, someone that's never given me money in my entire past would give me money, or I would even find money. It didn't just fall from the sky. Like you said, I didn't have a money-making machine.
So there's a couple things I want to mention. So, like, if you've done a spell trying to get money, then you're going to be constantly on the lookout for money coming into your hands. You're going to be expecting it and waiting on it. And the moment you find $10 in your pocket or in an old coat, you're going to be like, the spell worked. Whereas if you hadn't casted the spell and weren't trying to do that, and you found $10 in your coat pocket, you would just be like, oh, look, I forgot $10 in my coat pocket, last year from winter or whatever. And the inverse of that is if you're not doing the spell, you might not even remember that you found $10 in your coat pocket. You could have found $10 and you just wouldn't associate it as like, oh wow, I got money. You just found $10 that you forgot about last winter. So like when you're doing these actions, you're looking for the result. Like when you do the rain dance and it rains, that's going to feel like a super strong connection there. Whereas if you don't do the rain dance and it rains, you're like, okay, it's just, it rained again. Like, it's probably going to rain anyway. You're probably going to get money anyway. You know this stuff though. Like this is not evidence of causation, right? Even if it's 100%, like it would have to be like, rigorously duplicatable. You'd have to be able to apply the scientific method to this and run a double blind experiment or a study on this and duplicate the results. Like, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I guess explain to me like what I'm not getting here.
If it didn't work, why would a large number of people continue to do it?
A lot of people follow tarot cards and numerology, and they watch the stars and think it predicts their life. And it's this, people are looking for patterns to explain things happening in their lives that there is no causation. There's correlation everywhere, but a lot of the correlation can be random and non-causal, right?
Mm-hmm. It's one of those unexplainable truths. To answer your question, possibly. I think it would be arrogant to say anything besides possibly, right? It's just one of those unexplainable truths, and for me, and it was something that I analyzed, and I continue to do it, and it worked. And it kind of goes back to the bucket. I would only hope that you don't test the spells. I would hope you won't test the spells. You have too much to lose.
That's a sign of
a family.
That's a sign of like cult stuff, and not occult. I mean, like that's a sign of manipulation. When somebody tells you not to test them, like if I had a friend that was like, trust me, but don't check up on me. Don't verify that I'm doing what I say I do. Just trust me because we're friends. That's a huge red flag that there's some manipulation going on. If somebody tells you not to test them, stop trusting them immediately because there's some fuckery afoot, right?
There's a difference. You're really invited to test me, and you're welcome to test spells, but I would highly recommend against the latter. And if we could continue with the story, you might see a little bit more of why.
Yeah, sure. I just want to give my thoughts as we go. That's all.
Yes, you mentioned basically accidental reinforcement, searching for patterns that might not be caused by the initiation of a spell, but rather just accidental reinforcement. So throughout this time, I had recruited a few other people, and we had adopted elements into our theme of witchery, if you would. So the elements being fire, water, earth, and wind, right? And I had adopted the water as my theme for witchery. Okay, so there was this one spell that I did all the time. I'm saying multiple times a day, if it were available. It was the opposite of what you mentioned a moment ago, a rain spell, right? The opposite, though, to make the rain go away. Okay, so think about that for a moment. How do you make rain go away? You can't. If it's raining, it's there, right? But in this spell, if there were clouds in the sky, and you did this, it was a verbiage. You would repeat this thing. So it required no materials. I could do it anywhere, anytime, because I just memorized. And then in the sky, within 30 minutes, every single time, the clouds would separate. And it was weird the way they would separate. It wasn't like, what's the name of those paintings that psychologists give to crazy people and ask them to look at them and say what they see? The black paintings. Do you know what I'm talking about?
A Rorschach test, something like that?
Yes. It wouldn't separate in a random pattern as something like that. Imagine a cylinder directly above your head of a blue sky with nothing but clouds around it. A perfect cylinder. You see, every single time. Okay, and this story develops too. It's more than just moving clouds. Okay, but that's all it was. That's all I would do. I would repeat this thing, and the clouds would separate above my head in a cylinder, not like some random pattern, every single time. And I would do it for months because I felt like I was strengthening my water elements. Now remember, one of my truths is that sorcery folds 3 times 3. I gave the example of getting $10 on a money spell and then being in debt $30. Okay. Will you pull up Google one more time?
Sure. All right.
Type in how many people died from Hurricane Ivan.
Hurricane Ivan, 2004?
Yes.
All right, I'm looking it up. Do you want to talk about it while I'm reading?
Sure. I'm really just looking for a number here to preface the number.
Well, it didn't pop up immediately, so I'm trying to look at it.
Or you could say how many people did Hurricane Ivan kill or something like that.
Direct deaths, 90.
So,
it looks like.
What is it?
Direct deaths, 90. Total deaths, 120. Just depending on how you slice the data.
Okay. It's a lot. Another one of my unexplainable truths is that this was my 3 times 3 fold. Is there like a quick Google answer? I had Googled it last night and it gave me a quick number.
But this is the graph right here: deaths and damage by country, total deaths, direct deaths 90, total deaths 120 across all the countries that I guess the Hurricane Ivan affected.
Okay. So this is something that was overwhelming for me as a teenager. If it would be anybody as an adult, if they felt like they were responsible for this many people's deaths. An act of nature, you could call it, right? And this was my eye-opener, if you would, because anything else that was bad that happened to me 3 times 3 was something that happened to me. Even at that age, I had a sense of self-responsibility and accepting the consequences for that responsibility. But whenever it involves other people, that's whenever it became overwhelming for me. I wasn't raised in a church. My father didn't take me. My my father would take me randomly, like once in a blue moon, to his father's church that was a pastor. And my mom would take me to her mother's church randomly, just sometimes, rarely, as a pastor, which was a pastor. So pastors on both sides. So whenever Hurricane Ivan happened, I believed that I was responsible, and I realized I needed a religion. And if I knew that there was a spiritually evil realm, there must be a spiritually pure realm. So my goal there was to find that spiritually pure realm. And I found I knew of a local church already that my friends were going to skateboard. I was skateboarding. So I went there, and that's the day that I gave my life to Christ. Okay. And in that church, I had seen, and outside that church too, I had seen healings within my own body and healings in other people's bodies, which is a little bit, that's someone else's unexplainable truth when it's someone else's body, right? But I had healings in my own body. I had a vision one time where I literally saw things that were not there, not like walls moving like when you're doing acid, but like something like augmented reality, something that wasn't there, that was there. And I announced it to the church, and
I think we lost him.
Are we there?
Up, you're back.
Are we together?
You're back. Please continue.
Okay. So I saw a vision. I announced it to the church, and the church I saw a band on a stage playing music at a church that had no band. I announced it to the church, and within 2 weeks, within a short amount of time, they had a band. They may have had a band because I announced it to the church, but I may have announced it to the church because I saw it in an augmented reality type vision where I could literally see a band on the stage, right? So I saw these, I experienced what the Christian Bible calls gifts of the Spirit. Okay. After high school, I guess the story becomes more boring from here. After high school, I'm 29 now.
I think we need to slow down and examine these claims, right? Because if a bunch of null arguments are grouped together, they still make a null argument. So I think we need to go through each one of them. Like, what evidence do you have that you casting this anti-water spell created a hurricane?
None. It's my unexplainable truth. And I hate that I keep falling on that as my crutch, but that's really what I'm hoping you'll search in others before you search using before you try what I've done, because it can be it could have very bad results. Okay. I guess the only evidence, if there were evidence, would be the fact that it would happen, that my spell would work 100% of the time, and that it wouldn't work in some random pattern. It was always the same pattern, and then just combining that with the folding over 3 times 3, and I did it hundreds of times, could have possibly resulted in a hurricane that resulted in people's deaths.
So here's the thing. Like, if I try and duplicate this, I have to have a null hypothesis. Hurricanes happen, hundreds of times a year. So, like, if I try and duplicate your steps and, I say this spell thing multiple times a day, a hurricane's going to happen. Like, the question is, how do you know that what you did made that specific hurricane happen? Because, like I said, they happen constantly. What possible connection? What can you even prove correlation in that example, much less causation?
No.
Then I would submit to you that you need to relieve yourself of the guilt and culpability for a natural atrocity that you very likely, you can't, by your own words, can't even prove correlation, much less causation. I think you need to let this one go, man. Like, what if you can't tell me how you even correlate the two? I think you should take a deep breath and be relieved.
I have found forgiveness within myself and from a spiritually pure realm, in saying that it's one of those unexplainable truths. You know, I hate to keep falling on that. But,
well, then
but
let's dive into that deeper. What does unexplainable truth mean? It sounds like I don't even know what that sounds like. What do you mean by that? Let's dive into that deeply.
In this scenario, and to zoom out and zoom in, an unexplainable truth could be related, could describe something of physics, like regarding physics, like gravity that you had mentioned. It could be something regarding different dimensions, like this. What is it?
Well, I'm saying, so an unexplainable truth would mean a truth without evidence. That's what it sounds like to me. Correct me if I'm wrong. And if you don't have evidence, then you can't claim truth. In the case of gravity, even if I didn't know how gravity functioned, which I'm pretty sure scientists still don't really know, I can at least show you data and evidence of there being something there, and you know, severely duplicatable and a stable thing that, you know, we can show exists repeatedly over, you know, thousands of years or whatever. That's not an unexplainable truth, because there's something real and tangible and provable there. An unexplainable truth to me just sounds like something that you think is true that you have no evidence of, which is kind of a non-argument, right? We should reject those. In our quest to prevent ourselves from accepting things that are false as true, we should reject that stuff, right?
You're asking, should we reject unexplainable truths?
I'm still trying to figure out what an unexplainable truth is. No, I'm here. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hey, we called up to real time. Yes.
Okay.
So, would you say that would you describe your non-belief in God as a unexplainable truth?
No, it's the lack of a belief. I don't believe that he exists or does not exist. It's an I don't know, because there's a lack of evidence. So it's kind of like the absence of a belief.
So is it possible to prove a negative?
Yes.
How?
Okay, say that this cup was empty. I can say, hey, this cup is empty, it's devoid of water, which is a negative claim, and then I can show you the inside of it and prove that it was empty. I can say there is no water in this cup, and then I can prove that to you.
Okay. I guess, no, logically, your argument makes, your presentation makes sense. Certainly understandable. And my story is less understandable. I recognize what an accidental reinforcement is, and I don't believe that's what I had experienced. And if it were, then I don't think that my peers would have.
I'm not laughing at you. The cop block in the comments says, prove a negative. The USA debt clock. Wasn't laughing at you. That was funny.
You're right. I guess what I would do, my purpose for having this conversation is to motivate you to try to, if you can't prove, if you can't find someone that can prove purity, to try to find someone that can prove evil. Because I believe if evil exists, then pure must exist as well. And I think if you run across enough stories with people that have a history of sorcery, or people that are even currently engaging in sorcery, then there might be enough evidence, observable evidence, for you to recognize that. My warning would be careful how far you go, because there are sorcerers, I'm going to call them witches in this scenario, that will have a baby without announcing it and then sacrifice it. You know, it can be a very evil world, physical world.
Well, now you've proven that evil exists. I mean, now you've successfully proven that evil exists right there. Ta-da! That's all you had to do. We didn't need to talk about summoning hurricanes. We're done. Evil exists. I don't know about an evil realm though, but have you heard of this guy? His name is James Randi.
I can't read it.
His name is James Randi. He is a guy that spent his entire life building in a sort of like an endowment fund. I don't know, endowment's the wrong word. Basically, he took donations from people his entire life, and it built up to millions of dollars. And all one had to do to claim the entire bankroll was to prove that magic existed. And thousands of people attempted to claim the prize. And they applied the basic scientific method to thousands of people attempting to claim this multi-million-dollar prize over this guy's, 30-year existence. I'd have to look up his full story, for example. Not a single person was able to claim the prize, and I think the money eventually got donated somewhere, because I think he's basically retired at this point. So this to me is pretty strong evidence that none of these myriad of people that make claims that involve correlation between, spooky action that they do and actual causation of, effects in the world, none of them have been able to prove it. There was multi-millions of dollars sitting on the table for anybody to claim, and they were unable to.
That's the beauty behind a theology. Because a theology is something that has been, and I'm going to say will be, debated forever and ever and ever. That's part of, if there was unexplainable truth, would you be able to accept it? In saying that, there is, I can't prove it, and if he was still alive today, I wouldn't even go to him, because I know it's something that's not going to be able to be proven. But it is something in our. In
saying that you can't prove it, like, aren't you admitting that it's false? Like, if there is no way to prove something is true, like, why are you still claiming it as truth? Let me just read about this for the audience, and anybody should go to YouTube right now, search for James Randi videos. You're going to see him in front of massive audiences, in real time disproving magicians, and it's quite fascinating to watch. This is the $1 million paranormal challenge was an offer by the James Randi Educational Foundation to pay out $1 million to anyone who could demonstrate a supernatural or paranormal ability under agreed upon scientific testing criteria. This is $1 million in 1964 money, which is a massive wad of cash. Over 1,000 people applied to take it, but none were successful. The challenge was terminated in 2015. So the challenge ran from 1964 to 2015 with thousands of people trying to take the prize. None of them were able to prove supernatural or paranormal ability. Not one. And I think this is really important to what we're talking about here, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think it points to the I'm going to say fact that it can't be proven, right? And if it could, then there would be no debate. We would know exactly the path to heaven, or whatever the actual afterlife is. And if there were no afterlife, we would know the exact path to I'm going to say hedonism, I guess, maybe. I don't really know. But I think there's a beauty in mystery and a beauty in faith. And whenever we actually had our first discussion on anarchism a long time ago, before I became a self-proclaimed anarchist, I had asked you if there was any ounce of faith that was involved in supporting a full dismantlement of the government. And I think there is a little bit of faith that, involved. There's probably a lot more evidence, as you said, for a free people, free society being better for the world than there is evidence of a God or a spiritual world. I think, like you said, more evidence there. But I do see a correlation between a little bit of blind faith jumping towards a free society and a little bit of blind faith jumping towards the conclusion that there is a spiritual realm.
So you took a long series of actions and you observed results and you correlated the two causally. Is that a good way to come to truth?
Can you say that again?
Well, I'm just describing what happened. So you said that multiple times every day you would say anti-water spells, and then one day you got your comeuppance in, I guess, what'd you call it, the rule of threes or something in the form of a hurricane, and you correlated those two, and you did so strongly in your mind that you literally thought that you were responsible for the deaths of over 100 people. And my question is that a valid way of knowing? Is that process that you went through to correlate those two things that strongly? Is that valid in any stretch? Like, I guess I'm asking you to justify how you justified that truth as being truth and not just a wild correlation. And look, I'm pushing back on you because I want to help you absolve yourself of this responsibility for this thing.
I'm open to the conversation, and it's a great question. There's no need to absolve me because I already have. I have found forgiveness within myself. In saying that, if I had no experience with witchcraft and someone else had told me these stories, I would find a lot of room for invalidation, right? But at the same time, your story is your story. That's your testimony. And no matter what someone says, it's always going to be valid to Patrick.
Is there independent, objective truth?
Independent, objective truth. Is there?
Does objective truth exist outside of you?
You were cutting off.
Does objective truth exist outside of you?
I would say yes, but not in the spiritual world. I can't imagine, or at least if there is an objective truth spiritually, I can't imagine that we'd have it. But yes.
So that's the truth I'm referring to. I find that some people like to fall back on this thing that they call, and you haven't said this, and so maybe this is an invalid accusation against you, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but people say my truth. That is just my truth, my experience, and that is not an argument. That is not that is not a truth claim. That is a subjective sort of preferential, wishy-washy, muddy nothing to say. So what I'm talking about when I'm talking about truth is objective truth that is that exists outside of you, independent of whether or not you were even there to witness it, kind of thing. How does that relate to the correlation between you doing? Can just indulge my naked curiosity. What does an anti-water spell look like? I would love to just know, like, what that you said you did it multiple times a day, and I'm just really curious what an anti-water spell is. Like, what is that? Is it just something you say?
You've probably heard Catholic prayers before, where they just a Catholic will memorize a paragraph. It's the exact the anti-rain spell that I had used was exactly like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it didn't require any material. I could just say at any time, anywhere, no matter what I was doing. If I saw clouds, this was an opportunity to practice witchcraft.
How fast after you said the words did the clouds clear in a column?
No more than 30 minutes. Never more than
30 minutes? That could have been natural, man. That's like 30 minutes is plenty of time for the clouds to blow on away on their own. I don't understand.
No, not blow away. Create a cylinder above you so that in all 360 degrees, you see the rain clouds, like dark, black rain clouds, except right above you.
I mean, is this something that anybody can do?
I'm not everybody. I can only say that I know it worked 100% of the time for me. But here. Let me try to answer your question. With Christianity, the Bible always says with the faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. So in order for a Christian prayer to work, it sounds like there has to be some faith. But with witchcraft, I don't see that. I don't know that that's true. So to answer your question, I would say probably. Is that something everybody could do? Probably.
Well, I mean, shouldn't this be eminently testable then? Like, you should send me the paragraph of text, I'll point a camera at the sky and say it and see what happens. Like, this should be so easy that somebody should have been able to claim James Randi's prize. If it's like a paragraph of words. Okay, let me know when we're back. Can you hear me?
Here.
Hello, yes. Hello. All right. Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, this should be eminently easily provable then. Like, anybody should have been able to claim James Randi's prize just by reading a paragraph of words and pointing a camera at the sky. Like, I don't, like, if this were true, it would be easy to show, right? That spell particularly, yes. There's no way that I would repeat that today, and I'm sure you understand why. And for those same reasons, I wouldn't feel comfortable sending it to anybody either. But I am sharing my story, and I would hope that you don't do it. Okay. But here's now in saying that, if you would have told me to show it to you when I was 12, man, I would have done it right away. As long as there was clouds in the sky. And it was weird. It's really weird. Now that was the spell that was most observable, right? Like right there in that moment. Sort of thing. All right. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to discuss? Because I'm feeling like I'm at a dead end. Like I'm being given no evidence, and I'm not even being given a method to test it. Like if I wanted to test this, I could grab my camera, point it at the sky for 30 minutes, read a paragraph of text, and come out with proof. I could have 100 people do that. And we could all compare our 30 minutes of video, just to see, what the success rate was, and we could compare that to a random sample of people that pointed a camera at the sky and didn't say the words. And, it would be really easy to sort of just run an experiment to prove this, but I'm not even being given sort of that. So, like, my standard of evidence just rejects this entire line of reasoning as just, and I'm trying not to be, please don't take me as being like some kind of dismissive dick. I'm not. It's just like the way I know as many true things as I can and as few false things as I can is by having rigid, rigorous standards of evidence. And we're not even near that bar at this point. No, you're absolutely right. And as I started the presentation I would hope that you wouldn't follow through with my story, but if you felt like you had to investigate, that you would try to find as many other people as necessary to fulfill your bucket, if you would. How many people would you have to find that said the same exact story that I did in order for you to say, I believe there's a unexplainable evil realm, and I'm not taking offense to anything, man. Like, I could understand where you're coming from, and if I were on the other side of the screen, how this story sounds, I totally get it. Okay. It is, all right. It is, as you said, my truth. But at the end, during my introduction, I did say I would like to end the conversation by sharing with you what I believe is the afterlife. Okay, go for it. Yeah. My purpose for sharing this with you is not to persuade you. My purpose for sharing this with you is to comfort you, kind of like you did with me earlier in the beginning of the video. So one last time, can you pull up on your computer and search? Tell me when you're ready. Yeah, I'm ready. Go ahead. Universal reconciliation. Do you already know that? Have I heard of that? No. History of Christian universalism? Is that what I'm looking up here? History of Christian universalism?
So.
Okay.
It goes by a few different terminologies.
In Christian theology, universal reconciliation is the doctrine that all sinful and alienated human souls, because of divine love and mercy, will ultimately be reconciled to God. The doctrine has often been rejected by mainstream Christian religion, which holds to the doctrine of special salvation, that only some members of humanity will eventually enter heaven, but it has received support from many prestigious Christian thinkers as well as many groups of Christians. The Bible itself has a variety of verses that seem to support a plurality of views on the surface. Universal salvation may be related to the perception of a problem of hell, standing opposed to ideas such as endless conscious torment in hell, but may also include a period of finite punishment similar to a state of purgatory. Believers in universal reconciliation may support the view that while there may be a real hell of some kind, it is neither a place of endless suffering nor a place where the spirits of human beings are ultimately annihilated after enduring a just amount of divine retribution. Okay. Is that what you wanted me to look up?
Yes, and thank you for explaining it better than I probably could. Use a lot more fancy words in saying that I have no judgment, whereas many Christians do have a tremendous amount of judgment. If you don't do X, Y, and Z, then you're not a good person. Or even the other side where it says, if you don't do X, Y, and Z, you're going to burn forever. And I care so much about you that I will have this conversation with you until your last breath to make sure that you're in heaven with me, which is a loving perspective. But at the same time, that's very not that person's place, I'm going to say. So I have an unconditional positive regard for you and everybody around me, and part of that is because of my belief that everybody is going to go to heaven when they die. Now, what is heaven and things like that, I don't know. Is there one God? Is there multiple gods? I don't know. Is Christ the Son of God? I don't know. I consider myself a Christian agnostic. I'm probably Christian because of where I was born and raised. But I'm agnostic because I'm not arrogant. I don't have proof that monotheism is accurate, right? I'm constantly searching for it, the purity of the higher power, and there is no way that I would continue seeking the evil realm of spirits. So I just wanted to share that with you, so that you don't think that I'm a judgmental Christian, because I'm absolutely not.
Okay.
Used to be.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about?
I guess I would really just like to end it by the same way I started it. I think if I would encourage you, if you feel like you must, to try to find people that can prove good, to also try to find people that can prove evil, because one of them might be successful, and you might just get your bucket full enough that eventually, if this is a topic that's important to you, which it seems like it is, then you might find a truth that is unexplainable.
I think okay, all right. Well, I think the closest that we came in this discussion to proving evil is when you talked about somebody literally sacrificing babies. Like that is pretty provable, pretty evil. And
I think that could be discredited as a mindset. It's someone doing something that is absolutely terrible, unethical, violation of consent. I'm playing devil's advocate with myself here.
Well, that's what I call evil.
At the same time.
Yeah.
But that act in itself doesn't prove that there is a spiritual realm.
Oh, true. That is true. Yep. Very good point. Yep. That's what I was about to say. All right. Well, you're welcome back on the show anytime if you want to continue the conversation or have a different conversation anonymously or otherwise. I appreciate you coming on to talk about what you believe.
Will you say my name?
Huh?
My pseudo name.
Sue.
When you say my pseudo name.
Sue, yeah. Thank you, Sue. I didn't say your real name, did I?
No, I just wanted to hear you say my pseudo name.
Thank you, Sue, for coming on the show. I appreciate it. All right, guys. I guess I'll go ahead and cut you loose, Sue, and talk to you soon. Thank you.